I'm going to go over some things that we've probably talked about before with, what is a TIF district, what is tax increment financing. It's one of the few tools that is available to municipalities in the state of Illinois to encourage economic development. It provides the municipalities with additional options for funding needed public improvements and, again, supporting economic development, helps local governments restore blighted areas or jumpstart economically sluggish parts of towns. It helps attract local private development and new businesses into areas, helps make needed improvements, such as new roads, sewers, water mains, etc. And I've emphasized here on this slide within the redevelopment project area. That's a term that is used in the TIF, and basically what that means, redevelopment project area, is the TIF boundaries, the areas of the outlined of the TIF. Improvements can often be done without additional assessments against property owners benefiting from those improvements, and it allows redevelopment costs to be more comparable to green grass development sites where there's no building or no development on the site currently, therefore incenting redevelopment to occur. Tax increment is the difference between the amount of property tax revenue generated before a TIF district is established and the amount of property tax revenue generated after the TIF district has new development. It does not reduce property tax revenues available to the other districts, and only property taxes generated by the increment increase are available for the use by and within the TIF. It is not a tax increase. This graph kind of depicts the life cycle of a TIF. The yellow box at the bottom is the base EAV that is established, the frozen base, that stays for the 23-year life of the TIF. The green triangle above that is the incremental EAV, the incremental revenues that are generated, and then at the end of the TIF, the red dotted line at the right, is where that value, increased value, gets turned over to all of the other taxing districts to put as part of their tax base, and hopefully, as the chart depicts, the EAV will continue to move in an upward direction over time. How is a TIF established? Identify an area with physical and economic deficiencies. You prepare an eligibility report and a redevelopment plan. If necessary, we prepare a housing study. There's a public information meeting to discuss the proposed TIF. The Joint Review Board is convened with representatives of the overlapping taxing districts, taxing agencies. Yes, certainly.
There's a citizen that lives in the TIF that's on the board. That's the one I chair. But at the request of many of you in here, you asked that number be increased. So actually there's 3 more folks that are resident in the TIF or near this TIF, TIF 5, that are on it as well. So you asked, we were happy to do it, and some of them are in the room, and they can chirp up and point out where they're at. And sorry, Greg.
Wilma? Yes.
I'm chirping.
Chirping? Okay. Okay, we conduct a public hearing where the residents and other interested parties can express their thoughts and concerns on the subject. And then the last step is the village board adopts the TIF ordinances to establish the TIF. We have already progressed with regard to the proposed legacy TIF. We've already progressed through steps 1 through 6, and the last remaining step is the board adoption. There is no state or federal approval required for a TIF. And again, a TIF district exists for a maximum of 23 years. I do want to address the fact that TIFs can be extended to a 35-year life. However, it takes State General Assembly approval. It also includes a requirement to have all of the school districts sign off on extending the TIF. And as a result, the process is long and approvals can be very difficult. So we have not extended any of our TIFs at this point. And don't anticipate doing so. TIF districts may be terminated earlier if the financial obligations are paid and the village board votes to terminate the district. If the TIF has achieved its objectives, we can call it a day early if we want, if the board so chooses. How is eligibility determined? Eligibility class definitions include for a TIF are blighted, conservation, or a combination of blighted and conservation, or industrial conservation. The criteria for eligibility must be distributed throughout the proposed redevelopment area, the TIF boundaries. In other words, you couldn't just have one property that has all of the issues and the rest of them do not. The TIF boundaries must be 1.5 acres or more, and you must meet the but-for requirement. In other words, development or redevelopment would not reasonably occur without the financial assistance and intervention by the municipality through the TIF. The eligibility study reviews and documents the criteria for eligibility. For a conservation TIF, that encompasses lands with buildings and or improvements. There are 13 criteria, and 3 of them must be met, and more than 50% of the buildings must be 35 years of age or older. Blighted deals with improved land or vacant land, and industrial conservation, I'm not even going to get into that. The redevelopment plan provides an introduction and eligibility, describes the proposed TIF area and its issues. It outlines the redevelopment goals and objectives. It provides an overall framework for guiding the decisions during the implementation of the TIF plan. The program policy, it has a section for program policies and implementation, which outlines the general activities and financing techniques that may be used in the redevelopment goal, in achieving the redevelopment goals and objectives. It will outline the project cost. Sometimes it's referred to as the TIF budget, which provides the maximum limit of expenditures by the statutory categories covering the 23-year life of the TIF. The village is not committed to finance any or all of the redevelopment project costs in the plan, and it is not a commitment to spend. Again, it's just a budget to allow expenditures within those 14 categories that are provided for in the statutes. According to the TIF Act housing study, according to the TIF Act, the municipality must determine the need of a housing impact study, and that's based on if there are 10 or more inhabited residential units within the TIF area that will be displaced, and certify if the housing impact eligibility criteria are not met. A TIF district can only be changed after it has been approved by going through a similar public process as required to establish a TIF. That was steps 4 through 7, as I displayed earlier. It applies to the TIF boundaries, cannot be expanded or changed. However, parcels can be removed by board action after the TIF has been created. The redevelopment plan and project, the TIF budget cannot be changed without going through that same set of steps to, as we've gone through for establishing the TIF. There are some of the sources for TIF information. On our village website, we've got on our open government webpage, we've got a link to our TIF, a TIF summary page where then you can dig down into the individual TIFs if you want. Cook County Clerk's Office, the tax extension area, has information about all of the TIFs in Cook County. The Illinois State Comptroller has the annual TIF reports that we're required to file. They've got them in 2 different areas because they changed their web storage system that they use for storing these files, and so 2010 through 2012 are housed in one place, and TIF reports after 2013 are now part of what the Comptroller's Office refers to as the warehouse. The Tax Increment Finance Association also has information about TIFs. At this point, I'm going to go through the existing TIFs that we have. Starting with the Oak Park Avenue TIF. It was established in 1994. Its first tax year was Yep, please.
And I realize speed is helpful, but might also be difficult to keep up with the fastest treasure in the state. What Brad is doing now is not only telling you where the past TIFs have been, but what they've accomplished against the standards that you saw him roll through. So every single TIF will be pointed out to you. And again, if you want to chirp up, please chirp. And I see a chirper.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, when I first came in, you were showing the way the TIF and where the money comes from. You reach a certain level, that's EAV, is that correct?
EAV, yes.
What if the properties don't go up in value?
Well, then the TIF has not achieved its objective of stabilizing and improving the value. That's part of the goal, is to stabilize or improve the value.
will the village still proceed, or will they not proceed?
Well, if the TIF does not generate growth, there will not be TIF monies that can be spent on projects. So it will limit what can be done in a TIF, if anything.
So the village is not going to go out and issue bonds? Thank you.
We're not
But you-
issuing bonds to get this moving?
No.
But you have to spend some money. It's like the chicken and the egg. Some money has to be spent to improve the properties and hope that
Right.
it generates income.
Well, for example, we have spent, the village has spent money on, on these initial steps for creating the TIF, which if the TIF generates increment, we can reimburse ourselves for those costs. If it doesn't generate increment, then we don't get reimbursed. We don't get reimbursed.
Treasurer Bettenhausen, I believe what my fellow citizens are trying to say is what exactly do you suppose is going to happen, say, like the next 5 to 10 years, that's actually going to increase property values when we see nothing but property values go down in Tinley Park? It's like, I think, okay, you could put this TIF together, but theoretically, it could just sit there and do nothing, because if the property values continue to go down, and the Cook County assessor is cognizant of the fact that like everybody's low estimates are in fact going down, and he doesn't raise the assessed value, really nothing's gonna happen, it seems like.
Okay.
It almost seems like this is a big exercise that isn't really gonna have any foreseeable increase of income anytime soon, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think I would disagree with that. I mean, if we're talking in
Are you
terms.
disagreeing with that?
I
You
would-
think that property values are going up? Because
No,
it's certainly
well-
disputed on that one.
Let me interject here just a second, in the answer to you, at least the way I see it. Just look at the quadrennial reassessment. Did your taxes go up, or did they go down? Mine went up substantially. So,
So basically, I guess what it comes down to, and this is of course not the village's issue, it's the assessor's issue. If the assessor just says, I think it's going up even though facts be damned, you guys will have more money coming in, and I guess that's kind of like what we're banking on.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts with the property tax system, and,
Most of it's moving your wall.
it's,
No doubt about that.
it also is, it's a complex system, and I could spend a whole nother evening just talking about property tax, and you don't, you don't necessarily want to go through that.
Can I break in here?
Sure.
What's happened in the last few years, I think all of you know, has been an anomaly. By that I mean it hasn't happened since the 1920s. So what you want to look at here is the assumption that historical norms will work. Then your question, I think, was, what happens if it doesn't? Then you stop. Do you pay your bills for all the stamp paper?
Well, and that's ultimately where I was going to get to, is if it doesn't generate increment, if it doesn't generate new AAV, I can't accomplish anything. However, if it is successful, it gives the village additional options to be able to do things that it may not otherwise be able to do.
Sure.
So it's kind of, if we put the kibosh on it now, we've just isolated ourselves from an option for the future.
Well, the goal is the public improvements that we're looking to build will add
Well,
value
yes.
to that area as well as the downtown. I mean, that's what we're hoping for. And we get the pond in, that's going to help with downtown development, that should help the surrounding areas. And at some point, we expect there will be development looking at that site too. That's the goal. Can things change as they did in 2006 when the village was expecting all these things to happen? Yeah, absolutely. We have a recession or something, certainly things can happen. But then, I think as Brad was saying, then we just don't spend the money that if we don't have it.
And the money so the first tip that you're going to go over is, people look at that as probably the most successful one so far.
Absolutely, yes.
But that money, did you do it just spend the money as the incremental monies came in, or did you issue bonds against that expected revenue?
I can get into that shortly here, and, but no, we didn't, yes, we issued bonds, but we didn't do that in a vacuum. There was a plan. So, the Oak Park Avenue TIF, sometimes referred to as the Convention Center TIF. I also refer to it as TIF number 1. It was our first TIF. If you lived in the TIF and you have a tax bill, you'll see on your tax bill tax code 13139 if you're in Bremen Township, 32117 if you're in Rich Township. Our internal accounting, we refer to that as Fund Number 17. I think Michael asked about that or reference to that earlier.
And I took a picture so I could document it.
Again, this will be on the website. The last year of this TIF is to occur tax year 2017, which is the taxes paid in 2018. So we're coming up towards the end of this TIF. The area of the TIF is highlighted in the red dotted line. Here's a little better picture of the TIF. It encompasses a large chunk of area in Rich Township, some areas along 183rd Street in Bremen, and then along Oak Park Avenue, on the west side of Oak Park Avenue, up to 178th Street. Some of the projects that have occurred within this TIF, without any TIF assistance, is the Holiday Inn, the Always Open Shopping Center at the northwest corner of 183rd Street and Oak Park Avenue, the Park Avenue Townhomes on 179th Street just west of Oak Park Avenue, the Millennium Lakes Townhomes, southwest corner of 183rd Street and Oak Park Avenue, Lakeview Townhomes at 178th Street. It is partially in the Oak Park Avenue TIF and partially in the Main Street South TIF, plus it also encompasses some non-TIF properties. LA Fitness is also in this TIF. The shopping center at 183rd Street and Convention Center Drive is partially within the TIF and also includes some non-TIF property. The taxable developments that did receive some TIF assistance was the old Gambones parking lot at the southwest corner of 179th and Oak Park.
You know where he's at there?
Oh, yeah.
Most recently was I think it was the Blue Fox that's now just recently been demolished. We provided $47,000 of TIF assistance towards building that parking lot to address concerns of everybody parking on the street and so forth when that business was there. The Cornerstone Center at the northeast corner of 183rd Street in Harlem received $406,000 TIF assistance. Tinley Point mixed-use development on the north side of 183rd Street at Convention Center Drive received $367,000 in assistance. And the Always Open Shopping Center just recently received a $35,000 facade incentive through the TIF.
It's not always open.
And the Always Open is not there anymore. Non-taxable developments that occurred within the TIF, and again, this is where most of the TIF monies have gone in this TIF, has been the construction of the Convention Center and the expansion of the Convention Center. School District 146 also built Central Middle School that encompasses some of the TIF property. We did not provide financial assistance to the school, but it is encompassed in some of the TIF, and unfortunately, because it was it's a tax-exempt use, it won't generate any increment during the life of the TIF. Some Halo projects are the condominiums on Oak Park Avenue, just south of 179th Street. The Convention Center, we started out with a building that was roughly 64,000 square feet. The recent addition increased it by another 60,000 square feet to 124,000 square feet. It is able to accommodate about 70% of all convention and meetings that are held anywhere in the United States.
Let me ask you,
Yep.
to leave that up there, you want to look at that pie diet, because this is one of the engines of Tinley Park. It's recognized throughout the entire Middle West. I don't mean the TIF, the Convention Center and what it does. And you might ask, what kind of gamble did you take on this? Because many of your questions today will be, what's the risk with this? What's the risk? Which is good questions. We did 2 massive studies before we ever turned the soil over, and realized that our great convention potential was what's known as SMRFs, which is conventions for government groups, labor groups, that cross-section of people that get together for conventions because of their profession. They are not the high-end, let's go spend $1,000 or $2,000 a night and all the rest. It's almost the business-like convention. It has prospered completely in that area. Over almost 1,000 hotel rooms have been built. Tinley Park is the largest area with hotel rooms between Chicago almost and Champaign, and possibly Springfield. We had, even during this recession, because of that center and good planning and Brad praying every night. You have a lot of things mixed here. Because of those strengths, we never fell below the occupancy rates that are necessary for the hotels to prosper. And before I give you the false impression that that convention center by itself accounts for all the hotels being happily at 70% or greater, it contributes. The other two, believe it or not, that
The auto auction down off of Ulmer Road and Harlem Avenue.
people coming to it, and by the way, people delivering to and from it. And the other, in the summertime, this might seem a little odd, but it isn't. Joliet, the racetracks, they spill out of the Joliet area and they come this way. Now, we know this because we take a look, or the hotels take a look at who's staying at the hotels. But between the hotel and really solid conventions, it's been one of the, not just Tinley Park, it's been one of the special show places in the entire Middle West in the convention business.
Can you give something like an ROI on what the village has spent on that?
Yes.
And what's the ROI?
Well, I think ROI is return on investment. So the question that's being asked is, did you do that? And the answer is yes, and why did you do it? We did it in order to determine when the amount of money that goes into the hotel or the convention center pays it off. It's return on investment. And I think that ROI was about 14 years, but I'm doing that from memory, so whether Brad's memory's better, but we did. And we can dig that up.
But and I think that's a good stepping off point to address your earlier question. As we were developing the plans for the convention center, we had obviously done a number of economic studies to say that it would work. We then put together the plans for the construction. We had our costs. We then also had the Millennium Lakes townhome development that was in process, and when we issued bonds, we issued them structured so that our obligations for those bonds did not hit until the value came from the newly developed property from the residential housing. So we didn't just issue bonds in a vacuum and say we want to build this and we'll worry about how we're going to pay for it later. We planned that ahead, that this is how it's going to work, and in fact it did work the way that it was supposed to. I'm very pleased to.
Is the convention center, is it turning an annual profit pretty regularly now?
It wasn't supposed to, but if your question is it contributing to paying off the debt that was required along with the others, the answer is yes. I think that your question, though, whether tonight or in the future, should be right at the edge of your tip of your tongue. Where's the money going? Because it's successful, very profitable. And the profit in this sense doesn't mean return to the village of the money, but return to the whole industry of tourism. And I can tell you that, I forget exactly, Brad probably knows, but our hotel motel tax, among others, is how large each year?
It's about I believe about $1.5 million now.
That all comes from.
And that's.
So the reason I ask is when you said like 14-year kind of payback of it, that's actually kind of a pretty bad thing. Usually, major investments, you want 5 years.
What kind of major investments? Give me some help.
You're gonna ask the guy behind me.
Okay, I'm a banker. Give me some help. What's the 5-year
But if you're gonna
ROI?
invest in something,
No,
typically,
no. You're talking about an ROI for which industry? We won't do battle here, but I've got to tell you, that is wrong. It is for some industry, but you've got to go industry by industry. In other words, if you have a used car business, 5 years, if it's working, restaurants. So I mean, there's an industry, there's a standard for each, and you can go across. Still don't back away from it. What you're asking is right. All that you might want to tweak a little bit is what number makes it important.
Hey, Pat, can you explain to me, the money that comes in to the convention center and the hotel, does most of that go to the school district south, Richmond Park school districts? Or does it come to the Tinley? I believe 183rd Street, it's Richmond Park school districts. So all that you just mentioned.
Well, I actually will get to that in a second here, Dean, and
Hang on to it. Because
hang on to the thought, but I'm gonna hit it here shortly.
Okay, this might be off the tip, but I'm not sure. On the ROI, I thought the village owed the convention center a good chunk of change that's got to be paid this year.
No, that's,
You know what I'm talking about from that meeting.
there's, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment here also.
But if he doesn't, keep pressing, because I'd like to know the answer.
Again, next slide is showing how, again, the convention center has been beneficial to our local hotels. Our occupancy is amongst the highest in the state, and our revenues from the hotel tax have continued to climb. In the TIF, there's some development sites yet available. Directly south of the convention center, along Convention Center Drive, there's 4.8 acres of land there that is yet to be developed. We have right now a couple of hotels that are looking to build there that would also be beneficial to the convention center. We have a 3.5 acre site where the old Gambone's Blue Fox used to be, and there is a townhome project that is proposed for there with 17 units in 4 structures. Through the Oak Park Avenue TIF, we've also supported some of the complete street improvements of Oak Park Avenue, making it usable by bicycles as well as automobiles. Now we start to get into I'll get a little bit into the nuts and bolts. Here's the EAV over time. And you'll see a similar pattern in these charts as we continue through, where they all have peaked around 2008, 2009, and because of the recession, the values have gone down. But the positive takeaway here is that 2013, 2014, that has leveled off and stabilized within this TIF. So that's good, and so arguably the shakeout of the property value adjustments due to the recession have now been the rug's been shaken, and we should be now starting to climb again. The incremental revenues, however, have, with a couple little dips, have continued to climb throughout the life of the TIF so far. Here, I think this kind of addresses Dean's question. The base EAV for this TIF district represents, in 2014 value, represents 6% of that value. 94% of that increment is from new growth that has occurred since the TIF was established. So, in answer to your question, the growth that has occurred is coming to the TIF, not to the other taxing bodies.
Okay, and then once the TIF is paid off, then where is that?
That value now goes to all of the other taxing bodies. If you go back to that earlier chart with the triangular wedge, when we hit 2018, all of that increased value now will go on to all of those other taxing districts tax base.
Other taxing district, is that Rich Township School District?
There's Rich Township School Districts, it's, yes.
So basically, anything we build south of 183rd goes to the school district.
You've got the crossroads for Tinley Park are at the intersection of 183rd and
I'm
Harlem.
never excited about anything that builds up, only for that reason. It's like, it doesn't help
So-
us, it takes away from police, it takes away from fire, and we are their economic engine for those school districts. Anything, that's my thought.
Well, I think we might want to address that later. I understand what you're saying, but the answer is that the Tinley Park taxpayers that live in those areas are still Tinley Park taxpayers. Nothing changes. That which is supposed to go to fire goes to fire. That what's supposed to go to police goes to police. But, and I'm saying this, I don't know if the media are in the room, but even if they are, Rich Township, particularly the school district, will profit significantly. Significantly. And let me be blunt, and I wish we had more time here because you're wonderful, you're here. Bremen Township, that part which is in Bremen, significant amount of money goes into High School 228 in Bremen Township. As a matter of fact, take the economy off the table the last few years, which has been a disaster, not just for here, but all over. Some of the major growth that's going to support the continued expansion of, and maintenance of High School 228 is going to be in Tinley Park to 228, even though the Tinley Park part of 228 is less than 30%.
From the student population.
Yeah, the rest of the Bremen Township is going to be there, but we're going to be latched on, and we can help.
But Pat, is that a good thing that they are using us, 60477, we are the cash cow for District 228. You take a property, 60477, equal property in Midlothian, we're double the taxes as that. I
Because
mean,
it's
they're
assessed
using us
valuation.
as a cash cow. And 228 just took out $50 million bonds they're issuing. Okay, so, with us being a cash cow and these other Midlothian, Old Forest and such, them not contributing as much as we do. Okay, what can be done about that? I'm not excited about.
Is this seed for Bremen Township? Where are you going with this?
The question has the same value for those of us over 35
No,
with regard to paying school taxes to begin with.
it goes to, they're expecting an unreasonable large portion to come from 60477.
Yeah, but what would, you're right, what would be the alternative? See, this is a good discussion, I don't want to do it tonight. But Tinley Park is an economic engine for this part of the county. Orland Park is an economic engine for this part of the county. There's almost no other engines.
We're not happy about that.
Well, but what happens? You let it go down, your home values go down, and what you own is
Home values
worthless.
are down.
But, stay with me now. You can still sell it.
Which one?
Not for what I-
Look, I mean, this is a great discussion because all at once, what's he saying? What's going on? Somebody's in my pocket.
Can't afford to move
And
anywhere else.
I'm
No,
not
I
looking
know.
for these questions, we understand what's going on, but, when you're excited about us being an economic engine for District 228, I'm not excited about it. I wish they would, our neighbors that are sending their kids to the same schools, I wish they would pick it up the pace.
We, entirely different discussion, but you're 100% right.
And see,
We used to head up something which was OTEC, Orland Tinley Economic Committee, the two engines. We've been the engines since 1970. We tried to share our largesse with some of the other towns. I don't give them money, but help support some of their operations in order to raise them. Whoever said that is right. So this is, when we really get into let's say we get out of this state crisis, which we're terrible. If we cannot bring the towns around us, and we've watched it, how many have lived out here over 20 years? Start Homewood, Flossmoor, and come this way, what's happened? Midlothian. I went to school at Bremen. That was what happened.
There was no Tinley.
Oh, there was Tinley, but it
Where
wasn't.
you were going.
No, that's horse and.
Oh, you mean the high school?
Yes.
Oh, there was hardly a school. But a little bell on top, but anyhow, but you're right, there was no Tinley. But the fact is that outside this room, and I'm glad you're here, we have an issue. And that issue is how we deal with our neighbors and how we encourage them to go through economic development and to do the kinds of things. We could have just been just like that. There's nothing sacred about our borders that kept that from not happening, other than, I won't go into it, some extraordinarily good planning here. We in Orland just came together, and we knew our strengths, we knew our weakness, and we put together between the two towns, as of this minute, the two towns together, $400 million worth of expenditures between Tinley and Orland each year. We have the wealth between those two towns that rival most of the small countries of the world. And then it becomes isolation. And then we were thinking it was going to go to, going too far, so I'll stop.
Yeah, Brad, I'm so sorry I got him going.
I think it's time to bring it up now.
One thing
Another
about,
meeting.
one thing about the Oak Park Avenue tip, when you show the base, with 6% of the current value, and
Yeah.
how 94% is demand, that also was mostly kind of a greenfield property. It was extremely developable.
Well, not exactly. The area south of 183rd Street, the Rich Township property, was a farm field, but it was low-lying land. It was in floodplain. It had other issues that were preventing it from developing that we were able to address as part of the TIF. There are other parts of the TIF. I will go back to the Cornerstone Center at the northeast corner of 183rd and Harlem. Was a vacant gas station that had sat vacant for, well, as long as I could remember. So we were able to get rid of that blight and get a redevelopment there that would not have occurred without the TIF.
So was that TIF a blight TIF?
It was a conservation TIF. Actually, all of our TIFs, I believe, are conservation TIFs.
I guess what I'm driving at is for the proposed legacy TIF, maybe Main Street North, Main Street South, those TIFs that have a lot of residential to them would be a more apples to apples, because when you look at the legacy TIF boundaries, really the only developable areas of it are the ABC and Panwood properties, because the rest is my house and my neighbor's houses. And unless you're going to bulldoze those from eminent domain, I think we're staying there.
Well,
And, you know,
I mean, there's-
neighbors, their daughters have a lemonade stand, and that's not quite the engine you're looking for. I mean,
Wait a minute, how much do you think they make?
I think it's from mix, unfortunately. But, you know, I don't necessarily see this happening.
I think I would agree with you there. We won't see the kinds of growth and the kinds of numbers that we're seeing here with the Oak Park Avenue. That I have to agree with. But the Panduit ABC roofing area that is destined for redevelopment, that's where our growth is going to occur in that TIF. You need, well,
It's more than 1.5 acres.
it's more than 1.5 acres, you're right. But we also looked at that there's benefits to including the residential areas in the TIF for the stormwater improvements and some of the other things that need to be done that, I mean, you're looking at, areas that, when I put my historical hat on, date to actually some of it before the turn of the century, where stormwater wasn't even thought of. And you've got streets with, not curb and gutter streets that is now a village standard through the rest of the community. There's things that we can do if.
You have to have a TIF to do with neglected school, Tinley. Do you have to have a TIF to fund that, or can you fund it?
Well, under normal circumstances, with new development, the developer pays for all of those public improvements. In an existing area, if you wanted curb and gutter, we'd have to do a special assessment. If we wanted to do something stormwater, we'd have to do a special assessment. You would have to pay for part of that. So if the TIF is successful, we can do some of these things with the TIF monies and not reach out our hand through the special assessment to say, help us out.
So the proposed, the kind of bargain is the development of the ABC Panduit site will contribute money to get the other.
Bingo.
Instead of, because some of us are concerned it's the other way around. The taking of our tax monies.
I fully expect that this TIF will provide greater benefit to the residential than the new development.
I think there's more questions.
I got a question, Brett. Well, I disagree on some of that, but I don't want curbs. Don't put curbs on 65th Avenue. But it's too city. I don't like it. But anyways, and one of my many questions that you guys so graciously answered, you mentioned that, ABC is talking about leaving because they need more space. They want to grow. Well, why can't they grow there and keep the tax dollars there?
Well, they've got to acquire property from adjacent property owners, and if the adjacent property owners they're landlocked. They can't expand on that site unless they buy additional property.
Who wants to sell?
But I think they're more likely to want to sell their entire property, not a piece of the property.
I also think if we give them $3.5 million to relocate and move to Will County, we're going to be losing the tax base. Okay, so what are we going to gain here? And also, it can't do it. I believe they were used to pay $9 million in taxes. Now it's until they're paying about $4.5 million in tax they would get from Panduit. Okay, so that's telling us that if we do build something there that could be a generator, big generator.
Well,
it's going to be way down the road.
And houses
Okay,
is
so
it
why
going to give
don't
us?
we just leave ABC?
Fend for themselves.
Yeah, because if nothing's going to be built there in 5, 10, 15 years.
They don't want to stay there. They're looking at
Why are
probably
we?
Will County or.
That's, I think, I don't care.
Yeah.
I personally don't care.
There's a lot of sales tax revenue that generates. I would like to, quite frankly, from my perspective, I'd like to keep that in our
Yeah,
town.
leave them stay there. Why would we give them $3.5 million?
And well, there's not. I don't know where the $3.5 million comes from because nobody has spoken to.
Legacy.
No. I've told you before. That's budget for the 23-year life of the TIF. None of that money is committed to anybody,
So you're
and it won't be committed until the village board
I think that's
votes on
So
something.
you're saying we may not be giving ABC $3.5 million to
Absolutely.
relocate?
Absolutely.
Not? Or actually, yes?
That hasn't even been broached.
It's good.
Provision.
Oh, I'd rather
It's-
actually
Whoever
give it
said
to
that
them
was
and
right.
keep them where they're at.
Yeah.
Well,
And let them buy.
But they can
expand
explore,
it.
and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Thank you.
So now, how about the Panduit? Are we going to pay to wreck or take down their building?
No.
No?
No.
What are we doing?
There's been no commitment to that.
No,
No commitment.
Because you came to a meeting and our advisor said, this is possible.
Okay.
The minute she said that, I looked out at the crowd and said, oh my God.
Yeah.
And we've been spending weeks trying to recover from that.
Right now, all we're working on with them is basically an agreement for the donation of the land.
Right,
So
well,
that's,
we've been hearing this way before the meeting had. We've been hearing this going back half a year.
Really, where were they? Oh, she shouldn't have been.
Well, it wasn't her. I mean, we're-
No, there's rumors that are circulated
Oh,
along
we
those
got
lines.
figures, Yeah.
Does anyone know what's going on at Panduit right now? There's activity there.
They have maintained their research and development facility is at the southeast corner of the property, but most of the building is vacant. So if you see any activity there, that's people that are working in the research and development area.
But actually, they built a new section just behind that.
That's part of the research and development.
Yeah.
Now that'll stay there?
That is, they're planning to keep that there, yes.
Now the pond that we build, is it going to be a square dry pond, or is it going to be a lake look pond, wet pond?
It's going to be a dry
Natural
pond.
wetland.
Okay, natural wetlands holding water.
It will generally only hold water when in a significant rain event.
Dry pond.
So it's basically a dry pond.
Will it be gated in, or can people walk around it, can people kayak on it?
There will be no water.
Well, there won't be water in it long enough for anybody to kayak, but I don't believe that it's going to be fenced in. It's going to be, it's not.
Let me stop here.
Thank you.
Both the way that pond looks, how it's maintained, and whether it contributes to the atmosphere of good homes and a good neighborhood is critical to the citizens there. We want to hear from you how you want it to.
We could get a nice pond with water, we could throw some fish in there, neighborhood kids could go there, throw a little,
A couple of trustees.
Throw some trustees. Treasurer Bettenhausen, since the
Look what they got at Twin Lakes. I mean,
It was interesting.
Maybe not that big.
First of all, I would again like to thank Trustee Suggs for bringing, the questions that I brought up. And I suspect that you answered some of his questions, or someone in your department did. You had mentioned on the website that there was confusion about the pond as to who is paying for it, and it's already been basically budgeted, which is what was brought up in the last meeting when I was asking, and it's being paid for out of, and I apologize, Main Street TIF, like that's already kind of budgeted for 2017. So it's interesting that you say that there's confusion over the pond when you actually look at, the questions, or like the frequently asked questions for this TIF, it brings up the pond. And it's like, well, of course there's confusion because your website says it's this TIF dealing with the pond, but actually it's already budgeted out from the other TIF. So could you set the record straight once and for all as who's paying for whom, which TIF is paying for this pond?
Well, the capacity of the pond that benefits the Main Street South TIF will be paid from the South TIF. Okay? But the fact is where the confusion lies is I think there are some people, maybe in the audience here, maybe otherwise, that believe that the proposed TIF is the life or death of whether this pond gets built. And the fact is we need to build this pond whether the TIF is created or not.
It was very well, and first of all, since you did, in fact, I want to thank you for the answer.
Thank you. You're welcome.
What I wanted to say was, you laid out a good argument. It assists what's going on in North Street, South Street, whatever, because they can fully utilize land. You explained that the MWRD policy limits the maximum potential of that land. So I understand why the pond is, because I guess this is a deal that you make with MWRD. If we build this pond, it's way over here, it's equivalent of surface area to take away the water that would be there in North Street and South.
Exactly.
I'm assuming you've already approved all this with MWRD.
We have gone through a process to basically get those sites, by laying out a plan to build this pond. We got these
hypothetical world.
Got these properties grandfathered so that they would fall under the old requirements and not the new requirements.
And just to continue on that, if I may be, just kind of continue the thought here. In a theoretical world where it's like, we could accommodate all of the future development of Tinley Park and build a gigantic pond over at the, mental health center one day, like you could just magically route all the water there. Is that something that, okay, we're gonna build a mega pond?
No.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
No.
Actually, it used to be our policy, it would be standing water in the basements, but no one liked that.
No one likes standing water.
Now, just as Mike was saying, now you say the South Street, the reason we have to build that pond is so we can utilize the full potential of the property. Okay, that's 2.5 football fields long, that property. Okay, now I'm asking why you can't do on-site retention there, because personally I think it's too big a building, we'll never fill up South Street. 109 or 185 units minimally. I don't think they'll ever be able to fill that up. So smaller on-site retention, is that just off the table? Because you keep saying
No.
that they can't build there, they can't build there. But the truth is they can build there with on-site retention. And the reason we're not even following up on any other, well, Hanson Properties owns parts of that property, and Tinley owns the rest of South Street, correct? Okay, now why is it that we only deal with Hanson Properties as a developer on that property on South Street?
Well, I mean, Hanson's the owner now, and he's the one who's approached us with the
Did he
plan.
buy all that property, even the property that Tinley owns? He owns all South Street? He only pays $3,000 in taxes.
I don't know.
I thought he only owned.
Well, the village owns some of the property, yes, but he owns a good chunk of it, and he's the one that's come with a plan to us to say, this is how I would like to build
It doesn't
it.
seem like he can get the loans for it. He keeps coming back and says, now I need this from you, now I need that from you. Now, they won't give me the loans for this, they won't give me the loans for that.
He's actually finalized the financing, and the types of incentives that he's asked is actually a lot less than some of the other developers, significantly less than what they're talking about. And so one of the challenges with a development like that is we're looking to make these apartments basically upscale, and if you've been to the city and you see these ones where they have grills and they have amenities, the only way those things work is they have to have a certain number of units to be able to pay for it all. And typically, it's usually 200. This is actually less than 200. So the problem, if you ask any developer, whether it be Hanson or anybody to scale that back, the numbers just aren't going to work.
I just don't see how they could fill it. It's almost the same thing that Orland just put in, they weren't able to fill it, and they had to just turn it into vouchers. It's the
Well,
same size, they couldn't fill it in there, how are they gonna fill it there? And this is what the TIF is about, to get that property moving. I'm all for it, guys.
Yeah.
I start digging tomorrow, I'm all for it. That's my backyard right there, okay? Go ahead. I just don't see how it's gonna work.
Well, the market studies show with the current market, it will work.
Will that have commercial?
Yes.
Yes, they have commercial.
What percentage?
First floor.
Well, it's not, I actually don't know, it's part of it's parking, part of it's commercial, but it's not, I don't remember the exact amount that's commercial.
Now, is that gonna turn vouchers someday?
Well, I can't say what it's gonna be 30, 40 years from now, but the types of rents you're talking about, I mean, these rents are not gonna be the type of
Well,
rents
neither was
that
Orland, and I went and looked,
for.
I was gonna move in there, it was $1,800 to $2,400 a month, and they were small.
Mhm.
Okay, they couldn't fill them up, and now it's voucher, now they're having nothing but problems over there, okay? And people that are renting or moving out, it's just nothing but trouble.
I mean, that's not the story we're hearing.
That's not the story we were hearing, but
That's the story I'm hearing from residents.
Okay.
I mean, if you just drive over there, you can see it.
No, we heard several
Now they-
say, but that's not what the
Well,
village is talking about.
right, we talked to the.
Have you talked to them in the last month? Because
Yes,
they had-
actually, I did,
Last
yeah.
month, the TVs were
They're
still
very
on, this
happy
was
with
still on this,
this,
the residents are moving, why would you pay $2,400 a month and they're giving away for free to other people? I don't know, guys.
That's not what we're hearing, but.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
I
But
hope
that's a
everything
good
works out.
caution. That's a
Yeah,
very
that's
good
all I'm just
caution.
saying now, I just hope everything works out, just be cautious. It's an awfully big, 2.5 football fields long, 5 to 6 stories high. It's a monster building.
I think
I don't
that's
see
where a
why-
lot of people are bothered, right?
I don't think
Why does it
anybody
have to be
realizes.
so big?
I don't see.
In a downtown
really
area or
realize
something.
It'll be fantastic, you know, you're.
That's right.
Right by the train station.
I understand, but you're not gonna get the type of upscale building if you're not, don't have a certain number of units. Again, talk to most developers, they say it's hundreds of them. And again, what we're trying to do, the big vision of all is we're really trying to add a stimulus to the downtown. Trying to get good traffic, gets people that have some money that can walk into downtown, help our retail, maybe bring more retail, and that's really the big picture goal
I
of all.
see it, it'll look like a cathedral down there, like a coliseum overlooking, that'd be fantastic if it, if it works out, I'm all for it. But, yeah, I'm just saying, guys, I live there, it's my backyard, we have empty apartments all the time, every spring, there's all apartments for rent, they can't rent them out, they're gonna add 189?
But you don't have the types of units that they're talking about building at South.
Oh, that's a fact,
Yeah.
Right, that is, they're nice, but they were pretty nice in Orland, and I don't know what Orland was telling You guys, the residents are telling me a different story.
Look at everything happening around that area, Norman. There is development going on.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, we don't.
There's continued development occurring there. We'll get back on track here. Sorry?
Don't blame me.
The Oak Park Avenue TIF produces right now about $4.7 million a year. It has produced over almost $51 million over its 21 years to date. We have used about 1.4 million of that in assistance to private development, which represents about 2.7% of the cumulative revenues. The rest of that revenue, again, has been supporting public projects, the convention center and other improvements. The Main Street North TIF was established in 2003, first tax year in 2004. Its last tax year will be in 2026. Located in Bremen Township, tax code 13155. It's our village fund number 18. It's also referred to as TIF number 2. There's general depiction of where it's at, and you will see that as we go through these, all of the TIFs do touch each other. They're contiguous. That gives us some additional flexibility with the TIFs, and it's a good way to do it. Couple picture, here's another view of the TIF. It extends mostly along Oak Park Avenue, but extends as far east and encompasses the old Lions Pool site. There are all developments within the TIF that didn't receive any TIF assistance. The Amazing Smiles Dental Office and Apartment Remodel, Egghead's Cafe, former Wakefield's, and if you go way, way back, it was a Walgreens. The Fulton House Remodel Enhancement, currently Gigi's Playhouse. The Hope Montessori School expansion and remodeling, Siam Marina Restaurant remodel, Liberty Supply mixed-use expansion and remodel, the Old Tinley Park Arms mixed-use development, sometimes referred to as the Pass Building, received $150,000 in TIF assistance. Springfort Hall, $250,000, and then Elmore Plaza. We constructed a public parking lot behind the shopping center at a cost of $159,000. Projects pending is the remodeling of the former Jewel video store next door to Eggheads. Going to be retail space at the end of the day with some apartments behind. Non-taxable developments that have occurred within the North TIF is improvement reconstruction of 171st Street and Oak Park Avenue. That was adding the southbound turn lane and reconfiguring that intersection. The new Fulton School, no TIF funds were expended. The new vehicular bridge over Midlothian Creek that turns into Forest Glen Drive. Again, no TIF funds were expended. And the Midlothian Creek pedestrian bridge that was relocated from the turn of 66th Avenue, I believe, to 67th Court. Halo projects include some of the Parkside home expansions remodeling. Some of the recent developments, again, Siam Marina, Liberty Supply, Elmore Plaza, Siam Marina. Here's the Liberty Supply, if you weren't familiar with what I was referring to there. Took the old Tinley glass.
We gave Atherton money for those homes that they built? Oh, we didn't.
Did not. Those are, Halo projects are things that occurred outside of the TIF.
It's all non-TIF.
And arguably, some of that was because we have the TIF in place. So the TIF has allowed other things to happen outside of their boundaries. Elmore Plaza, we've drawn up and given them a proposal to add some residential units above and do a facade makeover that would enhance the looks of the facility, as well as provide them a better tax structure for the property. The owners, unfortunately, have been reluctant to reinvest into the property, and so we see nothing that happens there.
Where's this property located at?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, this property, the Elmore Plaza.
Elmore Plaza, they now call it the Tinley Square. Old Tinley Pub, basically the shopping center from 171st Street North on Oak Park Avenue.
Plans that you just try to get going or go through would have been really nice.
We've had multiple of these. It's gonna benefit.
He's just an older guy and he's just ready to retire. Why should he throw his money into it?
Again, getting into the EAV, you'll see this, as I said before, you'll see this trend where it peaks about 2009 and has declined. Again, 2014 has stabilized. We're hoping to see that trend continue. The incremental revenues, again, these revenues peaked around 2008, 2009, and then have declined as the values went down, but now again are on the upswing. Here, not quite the same story as we saw with Oak Park Avenue. The new growth represents about 37% of the value, where the base is 63%. It generates about $367,000 in increment on an annual basis. It's produced about just shy of $5 million over the 12 years. We have paid out $559,000 in assistance to private developments, which represents about 11.4% of the cumulative revenues.
Real quick, and I don't want to go too much into it, but I noticed that, I'm almost positive that Tinley Park Ice was in that Tinley.
That's Main Street South.
Oh, it's Main Street South?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting that one, okay.
Again, established 2003, it was expanded in 2005 to add additional properties. Again, we went through the same process of going through all of the TIF steps as if we were creating the TIF new as we went through that expansion. Again, its last tax year is expected to be 2026. Cook County has assigned it tax code 13156. Our internal accounting assigns it Fund 19. It's also known as the Expanded Main Street South TIF, or sometimes referred to as the Downtown TIF, and it, of course, is TIF number 3. And it's the area right in between. Again, a little bigger image of the TIF area. Again, mostly centered along Oak Park Avenue, but encompasses what is referred to as the downtown area around the train station. Primary taxable developments that did not receive TIF assistance: the expansion of Bettenhausen Motor Sales, formerly Bettenhausen Dodge, now the Fiat Alfa Romeo, the improvements of their new showroom and the other improvements they made there hit the tax rolls after the creation of the TIF. So that in the early years, gave this TIF a jump start. Part of the Lakeview townhomes that I referenced earlier at 178th Street are in this TIF. Citibank, the facade makeover was done without TIF assistance. We did provide some assistance to them for the facade, but it was not through the TIF funds. Oak Park Center redevelopment, that's the former P&R Autos. Bailey's Restaurant and Bar, formerly Jim's Inn. The pending developments include the Boulevard at Central Station on South Street, and there has been TIF assistance requested and initially approved, although the request may change. Non-taxable developments: Oak Park Avenue train station, Zabraki Plaza, the smaller plaza in front of the Carl Vogt building, the Central Middle School site, the former school site, potentially development coming forward there in the not too distant future. South Street, we've talked about that. Again, the pond that we've been talking about will address the stormwater needs for South Street, North Street, the school site, basically all of the areas along the west side of Oak Park Avenue, from the creek down to 173rd Place, the block encompassing Beckstein Construction, and the area of the old First Midwest Bank drive-in banking facility, and a little area to the north of that. All of the yellow and orange highlighted areas would be served by this regional detention pond. EAV, a similar story here. However, the EAV has not at this point stabilized. It has continued to decline, as well as the revenues. And in fact, the information was released by Cook County too late for me to update the presentation here, but it in fact has gone negative in 2015, which means there will be no increment generated in the TIF at all.
But what have we spent anticipating growth that hasn't come, that we are, as you said, now on the hook for?
Very little, very little.
So you
Increment in,
TIF and we didn't do anything on that.
in this,
They did stuff,
we've done some things, and I mean, the increment has,
Have you get the number that we paid to knock down the ice house?
I'm sorry?
The number of what we paid out of this TIF district to knock down the ice house?
I don't remember what those numbers are off the top of my head.
All right, I'll give it a crack looking through the website, but otherwise I'll avoid that.
Right, 2014, it generated about $37,000 in incremental taxes. It's produced nearly $5.5 million, around $5.5 million over the 12 years, and we've, at this point, paid no TIF assistance to private development. We've used the money, we have used money for other public improvements, realignment of North Street and 173rd Street intersection by the old Central Middle School site, where it was, the intersection used to be offset, now it's a square.
I used to live there, so I know. I was there.
The Mental Health Center TIF is our TIF number 4, was established last year. First tax year was expected to be 2016. It doesn't look like that's the case. Based on 2016, the last year would be 2038. It is like the Oak Park Avenue TIF, encompassing 2 different townships, so there's different taxpayers or taxing bodies that are involved, so it's got 2 different tax codes assigned depending on where the property is located. It has been assigned fund number 20. We're also sometimes referring to it as the state campus TIF, trying to kind of shy away from using the terms mental health in the title. Again, here kind of the area of the TIF. It does touch to both the Oak Park Avenue TIF and the Main Street South TIF on its southern and eastern boundaries. We do have a taxable development in it since inception. That's the Porter Place, the Anthem Memory Care at 179th and Harlem. Well, it has 66 suites for guests, and expected to be later expanded. Obviously, we've started the master planning for the redevelopment of the mental health center property. Redevelopment sites include along the east side of Harlem Avenue, north side of 179th Street, sites along Sayre Avenue, west side of Oak Park Avenue, and on Duvan Drive. Future improvements that are planned is reconstruction of 179th Street from the rural profile. That's again with the gravel grass shoulder and roadside ditch to the urban profile with the storm sewer and curb and gutter, and burial of overhead utility wires along 179th Street in Harlem. At this point, no incremental revenues have been received, and obviously nothing has been spent. The proposed legacy TIF expected to be approved in 2016. The first tax year would be expected to be 2017, and a last tax year of 2039. That all depends on what the county does. Obviously, because it has not been formally created yet, the county hasn't assigned it a tax code. We have determined that we would internally assign it Fund 16. It's, again, informally referred to as the Panduit TIF, and Panduit has referred to their original Ridge Avenue location as their legacy site, which is the source of the name of the legacy TIF. It's and as Pat had referenced earlier, this would be our 5th TIF, or TIF number 5. Again, the areas of the TIF, the boundaries, basically north boundary is Oak Forest Avenue and Railroad, 175th Place, 176th Street, and 177th Street at various points on the south. The village limits east of Tinley Park High School and the Forest Preserve, and on the west, 66th Court, 67th Avenue, and 67th Court. Contains about 217 acres, containing residential, industrial, institutional, commercial, and railroad uses, as well as rights-of-way. It's a conservation area, 13 qualifying criteria. And again, as I said earlier, at least 3 must be met, and additionally that more than 50% of the buildings are over 35 years of age. It actually meets 5 of the eligibility criteria of obsolescence, deterioration, inadequate utilities, lack of community planning. Again, talking about, as I mentioned earlier, some of these areas were developed in the mid-1800s into the early 1920s, where stormwater wasn't even thought about, and some of the other things. And it's showing lagging EAV. And again, it has met the age requirement. Property values in this proposed TIF area have declined nearly 42% over the past 5 years. That's a greater rate of decline than I find anywhere else in Tinley Park, any of the other TIFs or Tinley Park as a whole. Part of the reason for creating the TIF is to arrest that decline and get it going the other direction.
Brad, may I break in?
Please.
Beginning in the 1960s, there was a reach out to that area to do special taxing districts to put in curbs and gutters. They said no.
I know.
Beginning again, and I think I'm contributing to a brawl afterwards. Beginning again in about, and that was Jack Dunn and a group of Mayor Verheg. But anyhow, then
Verheg, yes.
Then beginning in the 1970s and 80s, there was again some knocking on the doors. Most of those residents, Ken Fulton lived there, they didn't want it. So when you see lack of village planning, it's because the citizens themselves said, we like the swale, we don't want folks coming down our streets, and we finally forced it to a degree on the street so we could plow the damn things. Because we were actually kicking up cinders with our plows. So I want to caution, this is part of the town, many of you know this. It's an old farm town. You know what? Those families have owned that property, some of them since almost the Civil War. Now try to tell me that we're going to go in there and take it over. And that's really, not 100%, but I add that because you've got patches of this. You can go back and find the family, Brett probably knows them, many of you, that said no. And there's a spokesman here for that group. We've heard from her. And it's reality. You just don't do it when the citizen says, jump in the lake, even if we have to build a lake.
We were gonna be taxed for them, we were gonna be assessed for them.
Yes, special taxing district.
Yes, exactly.
Special assessment.
Yeah.
We were taxed with
But I gotta tell you, as Jack Dunn would say, I lived in Parkside at the time. We put in curbs and gutters, we paid.
Yeah.
We put in a street in Parkside, we paid. My mother and father paid for that, so there was no way you were gonna get it and not pay. So this is
You
just.
remember where we're at, our front lawns are short. So when you put a sidewalk in, you're gonna cut our front yard in half.
That's a very big point, it's a good point.
That's why, we don't want it. But anyways, we don't want it. Can I ask you a question on the Central?
Yes,
The
go
Central Middle
ahead.
School? That building looked awful huge.
Well, that's South Street.
Or South Street. What's Central?
Well, Central, a lot of, you say Central, most people think of the middle.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's a big building.
Shut up. No, I mean,
Okay,
no, it
building's
just looks
huge.
really huge. Oh, yeah, I'm not being, no.
You're talking-
I think we have another question though.
2.5 football.
Okay. I think in the back I see a hand up.
Brad, I wanted to go back to the South Street TIF that you said is now negative. Could some of this have been done, because it sounds like it's overlapping some of that area? Could some of what you want to do with yet another TIF have been done with the South Street TIF? Because it sounds like nothing was done with it. You said
Well-
you did nothing.
Well, let's
What could have been done that wasn't done?
Well, let me go back here to the picture of the TIF area, and one of the issues that is contributing to the fact that the EAV has declined is in other areas you have you take down the old structures and then you build the new, okay? We had that happen on South Street, the new hasn't come yet. We had that happen on North Street, the new hasn't come yet. So because you went from a property with a building to a property now that's vacant land, the value has gone down. And so part of this decline is because the redevelopment that was to follow the demolition hasn't happened. So hopefully we get that turning the other way now that we've got some of these projects looking to move forward.
You know, you just triggered my memory, got more money we blew out of this one. The $425,000 that was paid for the middle house in the block on North Street.
Yes.
Did that come out of this TIF fund?
That was a long time ago. I will tell you, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Why wouldn't it be? It was in this.
I do believe that we were able to pay for that out of this TIF, yes, but I can't say that for certain.
I'm pretty much going to want answers on every single money that was bought, that was paid out on that North Street one, every piece of property, everything that was knocked down. Because, you know, now you've got all this money, and I'm just going now, so now it's gone negative, after all this money we blown, by the way. And then you got,
well, I wouldn't necessarily.
But you said in your budget, you're budgeting out to go take money that's relevant to this TIF district to build a pond, and yet now you don't even have any money. So you're budgeting stuff when you know you have no income coming in.
You're right, it's got no new income, but I've still got some money that we've accumulated that we are going to use to support the pond.
Okay.
Again, as I referenced earlier, you've got TIFs that touch each other. It allows us to move money from an adjacent TIF also
So you got
to
a
help.
TIF shift.
What did you say?
A TIF shift of money. Keeping it light here. Clerk Ray.
And Brad, if you have a second, just to go further with what Mike was saying, on some of these properties, such as the Van Bones parking lot, we paid $47,000 for it and build some townhomes there. Now, do we sell that property to the developer for more money?
We never owned that property. We
just improved.
We provided $47,000 of assistance to redevelop that property into the parking lot that's there now. On top of that, Mike Gambone and his partners spent another $150,000 on top of that, acquiring the property and developing the parking lot. So our investment was relatively small to what the owner put in.
Now, taking a little bit further, say the property is on South Street. I don't know if we bought Vandenberg's. I know we sold it to Kinder Care and then somebody bought it afterward. But the old donut house, what properties did Tinley purchase?
On South Street, we own the old funeral home property. We own the Fred Meyer's house that was next door to that. We own what was the ambulance garage for Vandenberg's. We own that property.
How much do we have in that property? How much do we pay for properties? How much did it cost us to knock them down? And are we going to regain that money from the developers? No,
We paid money for.
we've got a lot of.
It will all of
You regained if it never gets developed.
No, I-
it gets
Are we just going to give it to Hanson to develop? Are we just giving?
no, but you got a good point. You got a good point, Dean, because those things can't be forgotten as part of the the assistance that's being provided
What assistance?
for.
Yeah, you have a question up in the front row, Brad, as soon as you're through.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned some areas where the residents voted against putting in curbs or whatever, and that happened 2 or 3 times now, and it's been left alone. Is that agreement going to, I'll call it an agreement, going to continue, or is there going to be a point in time where the village is going to say we're going to do it whether you want to or not?
Let me say, semi-answer that. When this TIF started, talking about this legacy TIF, the trustee at the time lived in it, or next to it. And he encouraged the village to include a number of those houses in there to catch up with the issue that you raised. and that is that they were asked at one time, and these things change. They were asked at one time, the citizens, they said no. And by the way, this goes farther north, all the way to the old mushroom factory.
Right.
And so, you had people say no, and we understood. And they have deeper front yards, by the way, over there, so it's not, you don't have a lot of, sidewalks over there either.
No sidewalks.
I knew there wasn't any. So, at any rate, Bernie said, let's reach out. So that's why we put more homes in there in the TIF. We didn't guarantee it, but at least if that TIF starts making money and the people want it, we can put it in from that money. Then you might say, and that was the other half of your question as far as I was concerned. The other half was, is the village someday going to say, we've got money, it's going in? Who knows? It's up to a future village board. I have no idea at this moment what the people really feel about that. I mean, you hear a split family. So it's, who knows? It should. Somehow it should, and I'll tell you why. It remains unimproved, and you can't sell it for the same price that you can if you put the improvement.
I disagree.
Well, and you may be right, but that's not the kind of data we
Is the
see.
basement flood?
I grew up over there.
Yeah.
People whose basements flood.
Question, that's a blighted area,
Their basements.
some of that
Over
area.
by us,
South?
basement's flood.
Your basement.
South area?
They don't.
Yeah.
What if the village wants to
There's people whose
expand
basements flood.
and the residents don't want to sell? Can the village take it by eminent domain or somehow push the issue
Well,
to push them out?
if we get back over to the proposed TIF, and again, we were walking through the criteria that made it eligible for the TIF, and one of the things with the housing study is we said there's more than 75 houses in the TIF area, but we have no plans of any of those properties being redeveloped.
Right
If,
now.
again,
It's not even-
Again, it depends on what private individuals, if somebody wants to buy up a bunch of houses and assemble property to do something, they can do that. We're not gonna, the village isn't gonna do that.
You let the individual be the bad guy.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Private business being the bad guy.
Yes, that's not, the village isn't gonna go out there and actively buy up houses to assemble property. We have no desire to do
Well,
that.
sometimes that does happen, Brad, as you know.
Well, absolutely.
But we've got two more good gentlemen, again here and back there, that might want to lash back into it. So,
So is the answer to my question, we don't know?
yes.
Now, isn't there, it's not a percentage, you have to get like 80% of people to say, yeah, we want out. It's nothing to do with.
It's a different, what you're talking about there is, I think, is for a special tax increase.
If we were gonna do a special assessment, yes.
51%, not for the village to spend money.
And then, sir,
So the proposed TIF can provide the funding to alleviate stormwater flooding of the houses, and a lot of houses have that problem. They're lucky that yours doesn't. But is there any plan to fund that otherwise if the TIF doesn't generate funds to do that?
a very good question. You have a trustee here, don't let him get out. Because in fact, that's how it gets done. Think of Elmore's, those of you who have been here a long time. We put tens of millions of dollars into Elmore's to reduce that flooding problem, which almost everybody in this room that's over 30.
Barrett's you're talking about.
Barrett's, yeah. Well, we used to, you didn't have to have a rain like we had 2 days ago before you had a boat floating down. And we went all the way south on that to at and past where Barrett's finished, if you will, in that wonderful, which was, by the way.
Which was Elmore's.
Yeah, That, we made a decision as a village government your government, your trustees made a decision, we're gonna find a way to correct that because we're gonna have a blighted area in our town. And we did it, and Mike Bettenhausen was the trustee at the time, and did a yeoman's work. We put like 13 million or something altogether.
Are we talking about Founder's Pond for a
Settlers Pond.
So
That's part of
I
it.
think.
That's part of it.
Okay,
You're talking about a huge area.
Yes.
No, for Tinley Park. And it's gonna have to answer the question, it's gonna have to happen. If we don't assist with some of this, hopefully not eminent domain, we've never used it. If we don't assist with some of this, you're gonna start having areas that will be less and less acceptable until they become so run down. And one of the values of Tinley Park is we don't have a bad side of town. We have wealthier ones and not so wealthy. But we don't have a bad side of the town, and we should not let that happen. It's a matter of public policy, which is our trustee, but all of you. That's really what it's gonna have to do.
This whole TIF area is completely ignored by the police department. We don't get any coverage. You talk about the bad side of town, this is the blight side of town. It is. I live in that area, and it's a shame. We don't get any coverage of it. We've got cars parked all over the street. They don't enforce anything.
They started, I got
And
tickets.
it's terrible.
Keep them out of my house.
Could you come to all the meetings?
Do I come
We need a
along?
straight, no, we need the straight person.
Oh, hey, John, come on to the back.
I didn't know you were so smart.
There's some.
No, our side of town is the forgotten
yeah.
side of town. I mean, that's what everybody here knows that. We all know that it's a forgotten side. Anything the other side of Harlem Avenue is taken care of.
That's
Over
because it
on-
was built in the last.
Well, I'm here over 60 years. I've seen, that was the center of town, as you all know.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You're new in town.
Yeah, I know. But I wish something could be done with this side, that side of town, and get some coverage and just to do something over there. We don't, they fly down the streets, there's no protection. Our police department doesn't know where that side of town is. We got-
I'll talk with them.
I appreciate it.
It's the truth, because I called on something and she's like, well, where are you at? And I was like, I can't do it. Okay.
The blighted
I
area?
got a man that's got an automobile, he's a renter, and he's renting a house, and he's doing automobile repair on the driveway, and the street is covered with cars that he's spitting, knows it?
When you're looking at a TIF, we look too much at the geography. Let me make, we put up a map and look at it, so that's the TIF. All the TIF is a method of finance. Think of it as a method of finance. Whether we finance it with a special taxing district, you don't need a TIF. Whether you finance it from a reserve fund, whether you finance it with a general obligation issue of the town, pay for it out of, it's a method of finance. So if you look at it as a method of finance, when that goes into an area, you expect to help that area. If you can't raise the money, and you've got some out there, and some of you are saying, can this one? That's gonna be a board policy. Should you put a TIF in place that can't finance itself? The fact is, this government won't. What Brad said is the money is there for that detention pond. It is there. It's coming from other financial structures of this town, which enjoys a rating agency and a national reputation that's enjoyed by maybe 10 other towns in the state. We can do that. Brad has found the money, the mayor and the trustees will look at it. But if we do it, and that goes in, and a TIF does come, we'll pay the village back out of that method of finance. Somebody said you can issue bonds if you pass a TIF. Bonds are just another method of finance. So watch it. But when that geography was put together, it was to allow things in that geography to have public improvements done by that TIF, but it doesn't have to be the only way that public improvements will come. Yes, we've got.
What makes a TIF better than any other method of financing?
Good question. In all honesty, and I've never been a great TIFer because it's been abused across the state. The primary reason you use it is that parts of towns, parts of the state have no other method of finance. If you walk with me with my last 10 minutes of speech, it's just the only way. You might say, well, if there is another way, why do you use it? Sometimes bringing two together is better than just one. When you look at the financing of the convention center, that was a perfect example in this state. Were we so damn smart that we knew it? No. Bloomington Normal did it, and we copied their example with that Jumer's restaurant down there. We saw the way they financed that. We went down and we studied it for a few years. I did the financing actually, so it's more than just knew it for Chicago. Go to Rockford. Go to Peoria. Go to many of the good old towns in this state. You'll see convention centers closed. Dumb methods of finance. And there were these, they weren't TIFs. There were special taxing districts, depending upon the convention center with, hotels, but it didn't work. They didn't do the marketing studies, and by the way, nobody can study whether or not you're going to have a recession or a depression. People can talk a lot about it, but nobody guarantees it. So, as we're talking about this TIF, to conclude, go back to Brad, as we're talking about this TIF, we're talking about adding a second or third method of finance to get as much done as we can in that geography. That's what we're talking about. Will we put that pond in without it? Yeah, we need it. We'll find a way. Will the TIF help us? If it makes money, yes, but don't expect that TIF as it looks right now. All you're saying is, you're saying, that common sense says you're not going to put a lot of new commercial industrial in that spot. You're right. But in case we're wrong, we look very smart.
As I kind of put it from a little slightly different phraseology, it gives the village board options. It's about options.
We'll give ABC an option.
Can I ask about?
Sure.
So the TIF, you freeze the EAV for the other taxing districts. This one, having so many homes in it, will those taxing districts, the EAV is frozen for them, do you see them likely to raise their tax rate?
They can't.
They can't raise their tax rate?
Well, they really can't. I mean, they might be able to slip through and look to the attorney.
Because they're tax cap.
Yeah, so they're tax capped when that comes in.
I don't want taxes keep going up in that section.
Well, part of again, there's many moving parts to the tax equation, and part of that is that the value has gone down,
Yes.
which means if it's kind of simple example is 10 people go out for dinner or go out for lunch, and the bill's $100. Everybody pays $10. If everybody chips in, everybody pays $10. But if one person, it's their birthday and everybody wants to pay for his lunch, everybody pays more than 10, except for that guy. And that's what happens when the property value goes down, is that same $100 has to get spread over a smaller base. So everybody has to pay a little bit more.
But I just want to get some clarification on that. The EAV, that freeze I understand, but it essentially freezes their rate.
It does, the rate, it freezes.
They gotta get more money somehow.
It freezes their property value. Their property value limits the amount of dollars that they can request from property taxes.
Let's be blunt.
And then,
The other people in the district pay it.
and then the value tied with what they ask for dollars
Outside.
determines the rate. They don't actually set a rate. It's the end part of the
That's
process.
an interesting point that you made, Greg, because like, then that would be, the people that are outside the TIF that have a vested interest, what happens in this TIF then?
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, but, you know, it's too nice an evening for me to go into my draconian speech. But everything we're doing is almost a mouse against an elephant. And by that I mean the county of Cook and the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago have the highest debt in the United States per capita. It rivals most countries' debt. Until that gets corrected, we're not going to change much. The population, I mean literally, we're not going to be able to get those home prices. The population of this state has been hemorrhaging since 2000.
Decreasing.
Yes. And the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago did a wonderful economic study 4 years ago. And what we were hemorrhaging is upper middle class out of the state. Their study said this: had the state of Illinois been able to continue to attract that middle class voter, there would have been enough sustained revenue to close the financial gap the state's in. They are dumb in managing this. And it's that uphill battle that we've all got. And that's why you see middle class folks that work in Chicago skipping to Indiana. I don't means in ones and twos.
Retired people can't stay in
We
this city,
can't stay here.
in this town.
Yeah, I understand that. And by the way, this is true in the wealthier suburbs north. It's a hemorrhage to Wisconsin.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about,
The state of Illinois
let's be
is
right
getting
here, I'm
welfare
talking about
state.
what is,
You're
a
absolutely
movement
right.
that is moving so great. And one piece of good news, which I will share with you, we do studies every year here at the village. And it's on population. And the village has the opportunity to get data from the folks at
The Census Bureau.
Census Bureau. For the first time since 2006, we see an ever so slight uptick. And by 3 years from now, 2021, it could be as many as 3,000 people. So that's, we've been losing, in Tinley Park, we've been losing a small amount, let's say 150 a year. Sometimes bigger than that, but in that tick. If this data is true, and I doubt it, so the people are answering to me, I say, you gotta look at this. Where did it come from? And where it came from is this. One, net immigration to the village, because we have enough good, solid, middle-class homes, but at a price that's now competitive, means you're gonna have an increase in real estate sales. And by the way, the time between the time that you put that house up for sale in Tinley Park and the time that it's sold is measured in weeks now. Weeks. A couple of years ago was the next thing. So, and the next thing is that Chicago remains one of the economic engines of the world. Now, the fact that you can live in Indiana and work there, the fact that you can live in Wisconsin and work there, hurts us in Illinois. But the philosophy that this government, the new and the old, developed, is that if you want to work in Chicago, you want to live in Tinley. Now, this isn't a campaign. The chief economist, regional economist, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, spoke here this year and said, we, the Federal Reserve, see exactly what you're doing. And by the way, there's only one or two of you in Tinley Park. Is it going to work is the bigger issue. This is the risk we're involved in here. And what you've got to do, the voter, is make sure that whatever risk we take, whatever we vote, is overwhelmingly buffered against multiple ways to pay that debt, or don't do it. Because even at that, the risk isn't worth it. So look at layers. Talk to Brad when this goes on. Find out, how you paying for this? What's the second? What's the third one? And we've got those taxes from hotels able to support second and third waves, although it's supposed to be used for tourism. We've got other things that's coming in dribbles, including, even though I'm dead opposed to it, these little gambling things that are sticking up all over the place.
It's the sign.
The sign. Well, by the way, we're having a sign problem in this town. Somebody better start enforcing the crap we've got dangling from heavy clips. Somebody says it's only here for 3 weeks. It's been there since Christmas. Which year? 91. Well, I might not be right. But anyhow, there's a whole bunch of forceful things we can do. And by the way, we've got to do it or we're through. And your investments in your homes are through. But on the good news side again, we're doing this. And what's the debt that Chicago and Illinois, it's pensions. By the way, all backward debt. Pensions, what are you paying off there? You're paying yesterday. What does that do for tomorrow? Very little economic. There's no multipliers in that. For all of you that remember your sickening first economics course. It's not there. We're watching this. Now this isn't a speech. It's what I'm asking you to do is come in and pound us. Don't let this government or any other government spend without multiple revenue sources to dramatically reduce the risk. We're going to have to take some risk. But I must say this. Our pensions for our employees, for our police, fire, which, you know, is 12 billion or more in Chicago, in fact, how much is our police and fire funded?
It is about 74% right now, and climbing.
Pensions for our employees, what do we fund it?
I believe IMRF is somewhere around 85% for us, I think.
That means if a business comes to this town or any place else, there's only 2 communities, maybe 3 in the whole damn state that has that. They're not going to have to come in, put their building in the ground, if you will, and know they're going to have to pay off yesterday's debt. We've covered that. It's not exciting. There's no way in hell you say, good Tinley Park, you've covered. It's just what's exciting about that. The sidewalks are exciting, even if they fall off into a wetland, which of course they do. But that's going to give us an edge to attract business and to stabilize as much as we can the home prices. And you've seen this. I mean, every one of us have our own story in this room. If it can be done, we'll do it. And just make sure. Every other question you have is legitimate, but how are you going to pay for it? How many streams of revenue do you have to pay for it? The other way that you do this, how redundant is your stream of revenue? ROI, yes. Ask it. But if it doesn't work, everything now has to be comma, what's the exception for the crisis? And that's really unexciting. And as long as he's here, and as long as you've got some of the new, and I don't know who else is campaigning, but some of the new, some of the old, but they understand it. And anyone, including yourselves, the first thing that any government does globally is protect the property values of the citizens. Here, because that's the biggest investment you make, unless you're a Trump. Yeah, his property values too, I guess.
He's concerned about it too.
Yes, sir.
Question, comment on what you just said in terms of protecting the property value of citizens, okay? To me, if this retention bond is so important, which it is, okay, I'm for it, okay? Why are we being offered so little? Why are we any type of visual aids? We made mention of something earlier in terms of what this could be, what this could look like, so that we can kind of visualize how it's going to help our community and help our homes, help our values go up and all, okay? As opposed to a whole, 8 acres. That's all we've been told, that's all we've been shown. A whole, a pond, you know, that's it. How is that gonna help a blighted neighborhood? How is that? I mean, we haven't been given any type of visuals, you know, but we know that.
Criticized
Well-
for our marketing.
I think,
Gotta market the pond better, guys, come on.
No, I think we need commercial, and when you thought we needed housing. We disagreed at the last meeting together.
Yeah.
well,
Housing's not gonna reduce my taxes.
This is
And
not.
that's what you're asking for.
We're
What are
fighting to
you
get our
going to get?
taxes
Well,
lower,
we
and with the
now we
TIF,
see
you're
what
counting on our
the
taxes.
downtown, yeah, it's
the money.
it's huge.
No. Well, it depends whether you're in the TIF or not. If you're in the TIF, it's gonna freeze. Let me,
well, and again, it's to get the Panduit ABC roof, ABC supply properties to be the catalyst of that redevelopment, not your house, not Wilma's house.
Right.
But back to your question about the pond, and maybe I don't know that we've got a rendering yet of what this pond is going to look like, other than we know that it's not going to be a wet pond, that it's only going to hold water when we got a heavy rain. But an example here is.
It's funny you say that, and I apologize, but that's not how it was conveyed to us.
Yeah.
At the meeting. And this is why I think we have a lot of people that get confused because, you know, and I know it was a long night, but Dave said, you know, this is gonna be the situation where it's gonna be a pond, you know, it's gonna have, it was gonna have water all the time. It might have more water when it rains, but it was always gonna have water. People were talking about fishing in it, I was talking about kayaking in it. At no point did the use of words dry pond at that meeting come up. That's why you got people that are here ticked off, because it's like, you get all these different things, and it's like, and this gentleman has a very good question. It's like, why can't you get something as simple as an 8-acre pond set when you're doing this whole TIF thing, you know, and we're still debating what's the pond stuff? Who's paying for it?
Well, we can get some.
this is really the man's.
No, it'll be, right, and that's a fair point. We can certainly come up with schematics of what it would look like if you go out to Brookside Line. I mean, there's ponds like that out there. This is basically going to be a wetland. I don't know, have we talked about, is there enough land to have open water where, you know, we can do kayaking? We really haven't, but fair enough point, we can certainly do some design, at least in terms of what it would look like on the site.
But
Okay.
The downtown is gonna benefit from
An
it.
eyesore.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, and Pat referenced it earlier, where the village constructed Settlers Pond down at towards the south end of town, about north of 179th Street, along Sayre Avenue. We built a large, and that's a wet water detention pond, and that project took something like 1,000 homes out of floodplain, which cost them $500 to $1,000 a year in flood, saved them $500 to $1,000 a year in flood insurance. That's part of why the village board opted to do that as a public project versus a special assessment to the homeowners.
Well, to answer the gentleman.
But there's part of the benefit that was derived by that pond. It took all these homes out of floodplain, saving them flood insurance. This one visually, yes, we've got to work on getting a visual as to what this pond is and description. But again, functionally, the pond is the design is to hold stormwater in a heavy rain, and then gradually release it into Midlothian Creek, so that we don't flood people downstream, or flood your basement.
I understand what it's for, I agree what it's for. My point being, if our area is blight, which you've already defined that, okay, the downtown's gonna benefit so much from this, why are we just getting a whole? To me, we should be getting so much more in terms of how this is gonna look and all. But there's been no mention of the then don't mention no visuals of what this.
We get it, and we'll see if we can't get that corrected.
Yeah, but I mean, we can do that. I mean, we have talked about, some of the public improvements. One of the things with this pond is having kind of a wetland like this, compared to like a regular detention pond, it actually requires less land too. And there's a lot of water quality laws right now. You see a lot of these ponds just because these are considered more natural, they're better for the environment. But excellent point certainly about getting the schematic.
Right, there's the visual for the pond, what about the rest of the land?
Yeah, but how can you do visuals yet if you haven't really defined what you're really gonna do? So I think you're trying to put the horse before the cart, or cart before the horse in this case, wanting to know what the pond's gonna look like, but until they've decided what they're gonna actually put in there, you really can't give a visual. You can give it.
No, they've already said they already said it's that they use it.
Let me give you some help here.
They said they're gonna do it.
Get a car, even if it's not yours, and take a look at the detention ponds that the Tinley Park District maintains. That's what you want.
Nice, they're saying those are, that's what we want.
And that's what you want. You
Well,
see-
give me, where is one?
Where's-
What's the one by like the post office?
Yeah, that's a small.
On 71st.
What's that? That's just a big hole with grass.
Go out by motorcycle.
Yeah, take a look at
Yeah,
that.
that's what I'm talking about.
Use what I just said.
The one
Figure out
access-
which one's the park district, and we can tell you that, or you can find it by calling the park district.
Yeah.
That means you want a beautification and a
I'll take a
maintenance.
drive.
I can show you a
Let's go a little bit nicer here, make us happier, put something nice in there. How's this?
Yeah, there you go.
A diving board, even if there isn't one. I'm kidding. I'm gonna go home.
Not a dive.
You have a question back here, no, I'm sorry.
The pond at, the retention pond at Cicero Avenue and 167. It's like a little small lake. That's something similar to that, where it would be a beautiful place where people can come down and sit around the pond.
Kayak over there?
Well, I don't care about a kayak.
That's a side issue.
But anyway, that's what I thought.
Well, I think even structure 32, which is in Tinley Park itself, is a good one. Off 167th Street to the west, it's formally in structure 32. That's a nice one.
I'm talking about the one.
I know what you're talking about.
It looks nice, if people are enjoying it.
It's a big piece of property.
You're gonna make something that looks decent.
Yeah.
In the area that we're talking about, a flood insurance. Since it's flooding is being talked about being a big issue.
I have no idea.
What's the question?
How many people that live in the area that we're talking about, that the retention pond is going to help pay flood insurance?
We're not, that typically gets into the flood zone.
Well, that seems
Yeah,
to be
so-
the issue.
No.
Discussed.
Yeah.
But let me show you, we have members of our TIF committee here, a little special three-person group.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, there's-
Okay,
Well, the pond is gonna generate how much flood water goes into it. Probably is what it's gonna be. Dry or wet? Engineers probably are gonna,
yes.
come up with that.
What
I don't-
I suggest is that our committee is here, all three members of it. Let's make sure that that in the plans for that, we have a rendering of what is acceptable to the residents. And it might cost a little bit extra. I'm more worried about who's gonna maintain it. All of us in this room will be government and non-government, be excited about nice stuff because we now know it should be important. 10 years from now, nobody's around that cares, and it goes to hell. So that's why I'm sort of suggesting maybe we can get somebody to maintain the thing, like the Park District, because they're good at what they do.
A lot of those are really not high maintenance. That's one of the reasons why the.
Naturalized pond, yeah.
Yeah, except that too, I've been here when this room's been a third full, when somebody let the damn stuff grow so long, they look like they're waiting for a crocodile to jump out of the thing. Last year, as you were here, we had a problem, what the hell was it?
Yeah,
Rats, mice?
yes.
Killer rats.
Rat snakes.
Yeah.
Rat snakes.
Killer rats.
Mushroom.
We lost Kim.
Yes.
Oh, don't creep me, I know, Jesus.
A new breed of, rat snake.
So we sent somebody out to that, they saw two,
Okay.
and they weren't as awesome as the cord that's around it.
There's deer and wolves in that section behind Coyote.
Oh, lots of those.
What's gonna happen with those?
I will still be there.
No, we're not doing that.
Not touching any of that.
They're still gonna be around.
That's always gonna be, you're always gonna have.
With that big forest preserve there, I cycle through there all the time, I see coyotes all the time.
In the morning, I'm dodging the coyotes.
Yeah. No, I know.
They're getting a little more aggressive.
Government can't deal with
And
that.
they're coming across Richland now. So,
Oh, they've been doing,
They shut down the waterfalls at Worth and the coyotes over there, so.
well, they might have a, yes. Well, I don't want to, this is a wonderful next discussion.
Yeah.
And,
There's love.
yes, and then I think we probably should wind up. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay, this one's just like overall general. Chicago just put through an Illinois super TIF, or Chicago super TIF, along with the transit. You know, and I want to make sure that that never happens in Tinley.
Yeah, it's more than
Well-
23 years.
State legislature authorized the special TIF that included transportation only for the city of Chicago. It does not apply to us. We cannot do
But you can't open up
it.
the door to come to Tinley because they're using mass transit to steal funds from the Gold Coast for the blighted areas.
But they gotta get General Assembly approval, I mean, that's.
Yeah, but now we opened up the door.
Yeah.
You know how some politicians work.
Chicago often gets a lot of things.
The General Assembly doesn't care about us in Timmy Park.
There's a lot of laws that only Chicago has.
Okay, is there anyone else? We'll wind up, and I want to thank Brad. This was,
Yes, thank you, Brad.
this is one hell of a lot of work.
Yeah, there's more to this that you didn't see, and I know, I'm looking at the clock here too, and I'm saying, oh, I'm done.
Is that gonna be on the, is the whole packet
And you'll
gonna
put
be
the
on
whole-
It is. Because I also had in here, walking through the different components of the documents for the legacy TIF. I had also examples of how a TIF shows up on a property tax bill, and I also had one of the comptroller reports that I was going to walk through, but
Numbers in so I can look up what's what, when
Yeah.
I go through the minutes and the packets and all that. I appreciate
And I know you, and I know you had asked at a board meeting, you know, anything that of any substance that happens within a TIF is going to come to a board agenda, board vote, and I did pull up one of the last transactions. Talking about for the demolition of some of the properties on North Street, and again, with your question, it is part of the narrative of the agenda item that says it's TIF, funds are going to be used, and all of that. So
when we're seeing,
they're not,
when
you know,
they
there's
dumping out there on Friday night, I'm like, yep, they got a TEP thing coming up. All right,
There's-
ready the troops.
Okay, now I'm going
no
to,
lack of transparency there.
I'm going to ask if one of our committee members, there's 3 here, want to take my personal copy of this for your
That would be
committee,
great if I could.
So that this is everything that was up there, and everything that wasn't.
Very thorough.
So our citizens committee on that TIF will have it.
And like I said, we're going to put this up on the website as well, so.
You don't have any,
We have,
like good notes, like, well, I'm giving your driveway for you? No?
no.
Darn.
Hold on.
Again, fine,
With my life.
wait a minute.
What?
Did you talk about redoing my driveway?
Yeah. I did. You just said yes, so now it's done.
Well, it was just redone, had I known. We always strike these deals. She's cheaper.
Yes.
3 in the morning. Okay, thank you all very much, and
Thank you.
we will stay around if you care to harass Brad.
Good luck.